Okay, she was.
Okay, hello. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. Okay, we're going to start in a minute there. Excellent. Oh, I see there is already a question here on the chat on your right. Feel free to use it. We've got a couple of people today to answer your questions, so we will answer them. We'll start in a minute with the presentation. We'll wait for another few people to join us today. At the moment, we are about 15 people for the presentation. 15 people. So, good. Does everybody hear me well? Is it clear? Okay, good. You've got the chat on your right. You can use it. Perfect. Thank you, Anne. Nice. So, okay, Eric. Excellent. Okay. See? Okay, yes. Glenda. Okay, excellent. Look, so we are 5 here for the presentation. So I'm Roland. I'm the director. I'm going to introduce myself in a minute. And we have, from left to right, well, we have Claire and Maria in a team. Okay. Claire is a travel specialist. If you send email to us, she will be her and her team of 10 people helping you on your Camino. Maria is marketing, and she's teaming with Claire to answer your question on the chat. So don't hesitate to start writing here on the chat on the right hand side. Lisa also works with Maria on marketing. Yeah, she's digital marketing. And Jeremy is also a travel consultant and sales director. So as I am going through the presentation, they will be responding to your chat and your question. At the end, we're going to keep some of the recurring questions. We're going to keep some of the important questions that we feel that we need to bring more information, and we're going to keep, let's say, 3 to 5 questions at the end of the presentation. So the format is easy. So I'm going to go through the presentation, and we have question and answer at the end. Also, we have an hashtag. We have a voucher for everybody participating to this online presentation. Maria or Lisa will put the hashtag on the chat there, and you can basically use that code to claim your 10% discount on any of the Camino that we do. So, right, gonna start the presentation now. Everybody's ready? Yeah? Okay. So, now, I'm going to talk about the French way, the last 100 kilometers. People on the Camino, there is people coming from everywhere on the Camino, but the French way is the most popular. It means quite a lot to me. Before I started CaminoWays, I walked the Camino at the end of a round the world trip, that lasted 2 years. And when I came back to Ireland, when I came back to the place where I lived, I say I have to do something. I have to organize trips on the Camino. I have to work in the travel on the Camino. So it really means a lot to me. And I think, the atmosphere on the Camino, the special social aspect of the Camino is something that you will find nowhere else than the Camino. So it is me. I'm the director and the managing director of the company. We have several offices, but our main HQ is in Dublin, where we have our 25 people working on sales, on reservation to book your hotel, and on marketing. So that's more or less our complete team here. So we have people from everywhere. We have people from all over Europe, but we have also people from Ecuador and Mexico, so we have German people. So we have Spanish, Italian from pretty much everywhere around Europe. We speak altogether, more than 8 languages. And so we are very proud to be able to operate everything ourselves. So we have an excellent, and I hope so that you also believe that we have a good customer service. We have a support before, also during we have an emergency number, and we take also pride on our good feedback from the clients. We select the hotel. We have a team of 10 people booking the hotels and the services directly for our clients, and the luggage transfer. So we basically transfer your luggage from hotel to hotel every day. We do much more than that. In summary, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the Camino de Santiago, and then after I'm going to explain you why we focus now on the French way, the Camino Frances, giving you some practical information. And nothing is better than just a good deep in the Camino. I'm going to show you a slideshow of a trip that I led 2 years ago, a little group of 12 people that I led, and it's going to give you a good introduction on the Camino from the beginning, arrival at the airport, to the arrival in Santiago on the last walking day. So that you will have a good overview. Now, the Camino, it's one of the 3 Christian pilgrimage, the most important, along with Jerusalem, Rome. And Santiago is the place where it believes St. James has been buried. So St. James is the brother of Jesus, is the son of Zebedee, is one of the most important apostles because he is witness of transfiguration of Christ. And he got the gift of Latin, and he's sent to Iberia, where he's going preaching all around what is now Spain and Portugal. He wants to go back home. He's going back to Holy Land, where he's beheaded. And in 44 AD, he goes back. His friends are bringing back on a stone boat back to Iberia, and he's buried. He's forgotten for 820 years when Pelayo, a lord from the north of Spain, a place called Asturias, Oviedo, follow a field of star and find his remains and build a church. And this is the beginning of the Camino de Santiago. People are coming, flocking from all over Europe to pray and revert to the Holy Father in Santiago. What's interesting is the city of Santiago just get his name from the belief that of St. James. Santiago means Santiago, St. Jacob, St. James, and de Compostela means from, and Compostela is the field of star. So it's St. James from the field of star. The Camino, there's not one Camino, there is many Camino. Every pilgrim starts from their own doorstep. And all those roads were all commercial roads on the Roman time and in the medieval age. They were heavy trafficked road. Today, they are a mix of footpaths and countryside road across Europe. So you can see on this map, there is ways starting in Paris, starting in Geneva, starting in close to Barcelona, Sevilla, Lisbon in Portugal, pretty much everywhere. Those routes, we have about 16 marked routes in Europe, but you will find many more as well. During my trips on the Camino, I met people from Poland, coming from Germany, coming from Italy, all on by foot. And some people would have walked more than 5 or 6 months on one of the Camino de Santiago to reach Santiago de Compostela. If you're not familiar with the geography of Europe, you have Santiago de Compostela here on the left, just on the northwest of Spain. The route I'm going to talk about today is the French way. The French way is the line that you have in yellow. It starts at the border with France in a town called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and it finishes in Santiago de Compostela. The full route takes you about a month. Okay. Now, the French way is important because it's the most popular really on your Camino de Santiago trip. These numbers show you basically that the number of people getting their certificate in Santiago de Compostela by numbers. But in effect, 70 or 80% of the people are doing the French way. Then after you see the numbers, the Portuguese following, for the Portuguese way, the northern way, the original way. They all follow the color. So you see the purple is the Portuguese on the left, and the northern way is in blue, the original in green. So the French way is well ahead. If you have never done any walking before, if you have never done any walking holiday, I mean several days back-to-back walking, the French way is probably the best entry. You'll find a lot of little cafe, restaurants en route. There's a lot of people, I mean, locals and pilgrims along the way, people from pretty much everywhere around the planet, European, American, Asian, Filipinos, pretty much everywhere around the planet along the Camino de Santiago. It's really, really fun. It's a very, very social walk. Now, I'm just going to focus on the 100 kilometers at the end. So if you have, it's difficult to find a month, most of the people would do 1 week on the Camino, and that's our experience anyway. The last week is particularly special, I think, starting Sarria, finishing Santiago. And it is special because it is where you find all this atmosphere. It's really social, it's buzzing, it is really a place where you meet people. The food is also quite delicious. The culture is quite special. This part of Spain is Galicia. It's one of the Celtic lands. They have their traditional culture, food, and hobbies. It is an extremely well-marked road. So you got all those scallop shells. You see one of the pictures as a scallop and a little arrow, but you got also yellow arrow painted on the road and on junction and on houses as well. We've got a great blog on CaminoWays.com/blog in relation to the story of the yellow arrow and the story of Elias Valina that in the 80s has painted them pretty much everywhere. And the last 100 kilometers allow you to get the certificate. So your certificate is a sort of, is a piece of paper that certifies that you've done the Camino de Santiago, that you've completed it, and has no special any value, but, I think it's a nice little souvenir, but I'm going to go back to that after. In terms of weather, even in height of July and August, you have an average of about 25 degrees in Santiago, so it's not awful. However, yes, it could be a heat wave and you could be, in a high temperature, but the average temperature around Santiago on these last 100 kilometers is about 25 degrees. You have for the Americans and the Canadians, we have the Fahrenheit on the right, so it's about an average 77 Fahrenheit. And you can see also the rainfall is quite low from May, June, September. The rainy season being more, April show high on the chart. It's also a very popular month. And November and December are quite cold. January, February are quite cold. Could be some rain as well. So, and the most popular anyway would be generally April, May, June, and September, October. This is the time where it's not too hot, not too cold, not too rainy. In terms of what to take, it depends. If you walk the Camino with just on your own, and you use the use hostel, the sort of hostels along the way, you need to carry everything. So you probably need a big backpack, and you need to carry enough stuff for your week. If you have a luggage transfer, like if you use one of our company, for example, you just need a very light backpack, maybe a 20-liter So you get a little bit of water, you get some food with you, and a light rain jacket. And when I say light rain jacket, it's the west of Spain, so there is the influence of the Atlantic. So it can be rainy, could be rainy basically year-round, but when I say rainy, it's more shower, and there is a lot of little cafes, so you can stop and have a coffee, a tea, or beer along the way. So we got also a nice blog about what to take on your Camino. We've got also an ebook about how to prepare on your Camino on CaminoWays. You can have a look on CaminoWays.com. So, okay. So when you're on your Camino de Santiago, you generally, most of the pilgrim have a passport. So they carry with them a passport. It just allows you to stay in the hostels. So basically hostels are places that are free along the Camino de Santiago. They are just on donation. So generally they ask between 3 and 10 euro per night. You have also an option to stay in a B&Bs or hotel along the way if those are full. The passport allows you as well to get what you see on screen now, the Compostela, the certificate. So to get the certificate, you need to do at least the last 100 kilometers, and this is why I'm talking about this last 100 kilometers of the French way, or 200 kilometers cycling. And for that, you need to start a little bit before Sarria in Ponferrada. And yes, and then you get it at the Pilgrim office. You just give a donation. They ask 1 or 2 euro generally to issue that, and they put your name on it in Latin. So this has not really any value, but people think it's kind of special. You can show it to friends and family when you come back. So I'm just going to go through the slideshow of the week on the Camino de Santiago. So we basically flew from, this group flew from Dublin with a group of 12 people. Our flight was arrived about 3:30. So we jumped into our minibus and taxi. This is Cruz. She's running a little company, taxi company. She works mostly for us for luggage transfer and for transporting our clients. And so we took the taxi, and it takes about an hour and a half to go from Santiago Airport to Sarria. When you arrive in Santiago Airport, you won't see Santiago City, so don't worry too much about seeing the city before you arrive walking. It won't happen. The airport is 10 kilometers away. So by taxi, it takes you an hour and a half, as I said. If you were to take a bus, it takes you about 2 hours. So there's a bus every 2 hours to Lugo, and then you take a short bus from Lugo to Sarria. It's going to cost you about 10 euro by bus, roughly. And by taxi, it's 120 kilometers. So it's going to cost you about 120 euro, which is similar to the dollar, maybe 130, 140 dollar at the current rate, really. So after this trip, you arrive in Sarria. Sarria is a nice little town. There is a couple of pedestrian streets with a little cafe terrace, a nice little buzz. It's also the starting point of many pilgrims. So it's a nice little buzz of people that have done a good part of the Camino already. Maybe some people are already on the Camino for 3 weeks, and some people just arrive from the airplane there. And there's a nice little river, and you have the opportunity to sample the local Galician food. So in Sarria, you've got 2 options. I've done them both. Hostels, so it's called albergue in Spanish. So it's basically run by the local council. So it's only volunteer people that are running the albergue. So your donation is going towards the maintenance of the place, the cleanliness, and people are just a volunteer. So some of the albergue, like this one, for example, has about like 10 to 20 beds per room, but some of them can be much larger than that. It depends, really. So when you're in an albergue, you have to make sure that you get a light sleeping bag. something light, because generally the heating is on. It's generally quite warm. It's okay. But if you do it in winter, maybe you get something a little bit warmer. Also, if you take a small sleeping bag, just gives you a little bit more, let's say, privacy, and it's your own bag really. You probably need your earplugs as well, because it can be noisy at night as well with people snoring. And so pretty much it. And the boot stays outside, as you can imagine. Some people have walked a long time every day. So now, meanwhile, we were in our 3-star hotel in the center of Zaria. So all our group settled and checked in a lovely hotel, took a shower, etc. So we arrived, an hour and a half later, and we set a meeting around 7 o'clock at the restaurant downstairs. But we had sort of surprise that the dinner was going to be at 8. So we just basically were offered a bottle of champagne that we shared, and we shared also a couple of tapas, like, patatas, potatoes, or various, mushrooms, or all sorts of nice things to eat, olives, etc. So we waited an hour, and we enjoyed the wine. So the next day we just woke up around 7. We had breakfast at 8, and we went at 9. So basically, when I leave the group, I always do that on the first day, because you never know who's going to be fast, who's going to be slow, and you don't want to take any risk with the weather. Starting at 9 is good. It's not too early, not too late. And because we had all our accommodation pre-booked, we don't have to rush. We didn't have to arrive early. If you don't book your accommodation, and if you go on hostel, the hostel open at 4 o'clock. But on busy season, you may have to queue, and it's on first come, first serve. So generally, you wait at the door, maybe a little bit before. And if there is no space on the hostel because there's too many people, well, on those last 100 kilometers, you will find a lot of hostels around the way. Maybe every 2, 3, or 5 kilometers, you will find an hostel where you can go. Alternatively, there is plenty of little B&Bs and hotels along the way. So the landscape is, generally you walk on very good footpaths, and you're reasonably well shaded. Even on hot weather, you will always find a place to have a forest and have trees, and it's comfortable enough to walk. And those things are called oreo. They are granaries. You will see them. They're typical of Galicia. You will see them pretty much everywhere. Every farm has one. So you basically store the grain for the winter for the animals, and they are raised up so and the rodent can't access it and can't eat the corn. So, there is a mix of footpaths on the Camino de Santiago. I can't promise it's going to be footpaths or dirt track or only tarmac. It's a mix of everything. The French way overall is 700 kilometers. You're crossing an entire country. Even all the Camino, you cross an entire continent. So at some moments, you will be on good footpaths, on dirt track, or on little countryside roads. But as you can see this picture, there's no traffic, and it's generally to go from a place to another place, a hamlet to another hamlet, a farm to another farm. So it's mostly commuting, but it's no traffic. So at any point, it's extremely difficult to get lost on the Camino. You can see a little arrow that is circled there on the picture. So you're crossing villages, you're crossing populated area, not heavily populated area. Galicia has never been industrialized. It's mostly farmland and, people living as they were living 200 years ago, arrows are pretty much painted everywhere. So there's not so much road for being lost at any point really on your Camino de Santiago. As well, if you think you're lost, you can always ask someone, or you retrace your steps a little bit. A good option is to also, there's a couple of guidebooks like the John Burley Guide and also a Cicerone, a good guidebook with good maps as well. But directions are not really an issue. Now, there's some good views as well. So you're going up and down pretty much every day. To give you an idea, you do about 400-meter ascent and descent every day. So it's about 1,200 feet up and down every day. It's not too strenuous. It's like, you know, a good hike without going to the top of the mountain and the bottom of the valley every day. And, you know, you don't want to keep it too flat neither, because if you keep it flat, it's just a little bit boring as well. So as you elevate yourself, you really see the countryside with a different perspective. And that day we actually got stuck. This man had hundreds of cows on the road and we couldn't pass really. So he was taking his time and we were waiting for already 5 or 10 minutes. So we decided to stop in one of those little cafes there. And we just had a beer and a bit of wine and we just take it easy really. You have those cafes every 5 kilometers or even less than that. 5 kilometers, it's about every hour walking roughly. So if you've never really done the Camino de Santiago and you don't know if you're able to do on average 20 kilometers, 22 kilometers per day, well, don't worry too much. If you're able to do this walk, you will have the chance to stop en route and to have some food and drink along the way. And also, you don't have to carry too much. You will find fountains. If you will have fountain, or you can buy as well food and water along the way. So I'd say if you carry 1 or 1.5 liter with you on the morning when you leave the hotel, it's far enough. You will be able to refill or later on. So we arrived in a town called Porto Marin. It's a lovely, pretty little town. There is the paved street in the middle of the town, and this sort of quite spectacular little Galician church where you can get your stamp. So as I said earlier, you travel with a passport, and every day you need 1 stamp as a minimum. Some people say 2, you know, and you can get stamp in those churches. Along the way, you can get them in restaurants and cafes. And pretty much everywhere. I remember traveling with another group that time, and we have space in the passport for about 40 stamps, you know. And I remember a person on day 2 that had no place at all. Like, the stamps are really lovely, they're unique, and they're very special. So they were getting stamped pretty much everywhere. And there was no space. So what we did is, basically, you don't really need a passport in particular, you know. So we bought a book and we just continued stamping the book every day. As long as you can prove that you've been on the places and that you have the date written and the stamp there, it's more than sufficient. So it's still on the Camino de Santiago. We're still in Porto Marin and we arrived at our hotel. And that night in Porto Marin, there's a lovely hotel called Posada de Porto Marin. It's a 3-star hotel. Hotels are not that expensive, even a 3-star with a swimming pool. You know, maybe it costs you, you know, 80 to 100 euro for the night for 2 people. Depending on the season, could be more expensive or cheaper, it depends. The swimming pools are generally open from June to September, would be closed the rest of the year because they are not heated. And the next day we continued across the landscape, and we're getting up. You can see Porto Marin at the back, and we're going across a vineyard as well. So it's quite lovely, and we just continue. And as you can see, the terrain is not the same. You got stone on this one, so you have to be careful about what you wear too, you know. Some people think about going with sandals. That's absolutely fine. You can do sandals because there's no boggy terrain. There's no particularly muddy parts. But you have to be aware that an average day on the Camino is about 22 kilometers. So you can be tired at the end of the day. You can twist your ankle. So the best is a light pair of boots. You know, a good pair of boots gives you a good support on your ankles. And you don't have to be worried about being lost. You find those scallop shell every 1 kilometer, and under those you've got the number of kilometers written there. So they show you the way, and they tell you how many kilometers you've got left to Santiago de Compostela. So if you start in Saint Jean, for example, you've got 800 kilometers, and you walk 20 minutes, it's going to be 799, you know. So, but no, without being funny, really, you forget very, very quickly the number of kilometers. There's a lot of people along the way that you're going to be chatting to, or, you know, very quickly on your own. It's really crazy the number of thoughts we have in our mind, you know, at one single time. Just if you've been walking already, you know, for a few hours, very quickly after a few minutes or an hour, you are thinking of things that are very old or very new, or this is really what the Camino brings you. I think it's what people also call spirituality or retreat. Yeah, and you know, we still continue on the Camino de Santiago. We are on day 3 of the walk, and there's a little cafe there. You see, you have the shade. Nothing really sophisticated, you know, a couple of tables and chairs around, people sit down. And what is really cool about the Camino is you're going to meet people that you met maybe on day 1 of your Camino. And you really have an impression of déjà vu, or of, you know, the person, that there's a really some sort of home feel about, you know, meeting someone that you've seen a few days ago, and you may meet them again in Santiago. And remember, everybody's going in the same direction. Everybody's going west. Everybody's going to Santiago. So some people may not stay at the same place. Some people will walk a little bit more every day, but maybe a little bit less another day. So you may not meet someone the next day, but you may meet them on the 3rd day, for example. On those cafes, you can find, you know, your lunch. So we generally don't really include lunch, and you don't really carry lunch because you can buy sandwich, you know, but you can buy salad as well, or omelette or anything, in a cafe, con leche, so a coffee with milk. And to be honest, a sandwich maybe 2 or 3 euro, and a coffee 1 euro. So generally, you can have a very, very good lunch for about 5 euro. You can stop longer as well and have more food, and you will have generally the choice pretty much everywhere. Who walk the Camino? Pretty much everybody. In July and August, there's more students during the school holidays. And you will see guys that are like teenagers walking the Camino pretty much everywhere at that time. During, you know, April, May, June, and September, October would be the grown-up, you know, and also people from the north of Europe and America and Canada a little bit more, but this is not a set rule. And you're crossing village, and you have those lovely houses with, you know, flowers. And I'm going to zoom in a second there on this picture, and you have the options as well of bailout. So remember, it's also a holiday. So some people will be really stubborn of doing every single meter of the Camino de Santiago, but some people also take it as, look, I have so many holidays during the year. I want to have good fun, have a little bit of wine, you know, and see what's the Camino. So you have also the options at all the cafe and restaurants to take a taxi or to take a local bus. A taxi is about 1 euro per kilometer. So if you have 20K to do, you have done halfway. Let's say you've done 10 kilometers. You've got 10 kilometers to do so. It's going to be a 10 or 15 euro to get to your next hotel. So it's not a big deal. And that's the taxi. And that was really funny when we were walking. so this man came to pick up his lady, and he took about 20 minutes for her to jump on the tractor. So he was trying to help her, etc. But and then they went on their way, and you can see the lady on the right, Claire. She was laughing. We were laughing. It was kind of funny and very, very romantic. So along the way, you got churches, you got those cross as well, and there is a lot of legend in Galicia, a lot of things that are said and not said, a lot of legends. So we have a good post on CaminoWays.com about those cross along the road. It says that you should not approach them during the night, as there will be witches and ghosts to haunt you. Some of the paths are very narrow as well. So if you are, for example, cycling, there is always a sort of variation for your road. So you can't really take the bike on that particular photo. So we arrived in Palas de Rey. We are we just arrived. We had done about 20 kilometers. So, excuse me. We were sharing the table there. So at dinner, generally, you have a starter, you have a main course, and you have dessert. So it's called the Menu del Pellegrino, the Pilgrim menu. It costs between, let's say, 9 and 12 euro to eat every night, pretty much everywhere. So your starter, you generally have a choice between 3 starter, 3 main course, and 3 desserts. So your starter can be made of, for example, a soup or a salad, or I don't know, some omelette, for example. Your main course can be done of a meat, a fish, and a vegetarian option. And dessert, maybe you have a fruit, maybe a cake, maybe a yogurt, and nothing too sophisticated, but it's the food of the land, it's the food of Galicia. It makes you very, very happy, and with a full belly as well. You have also wine, 1 bottle for generally 2 people or 4 people, depending the place. You got water and you got bread as well. So it's absolutely plenty. And in those places that you meet also the people at night, people that you may have meet during the day walking. So generally dinner, you won't find dinner before 8 o'clock. So just, before that, just be aware of it. And if you are very hungry, there's always a bar somewhere where you can get a tapas. So we had an American girl in the group. She was from California. She met someone from her own village, so her own town, I suppose. And so there was a bit of a party at that time there. It was kind of funny. So many kilometers away. And this is a 1st century bridge, a Roman bridge from the 1st century. There's many of them along the road, and if you're interested in the heritage, you will walk on Roman road, Roman paved road by time to time as well. You will see those bridges, you will see all sorts of monuments as well that are quite interesting. And you have always the chance to put your feet in the water when you're crossing a river. This is Ribadeo. It's a lovely place. What you can see on the picture is an hostel there, and a lot of beds on this one. And it's always very, very friendly with tons of people. It's very fun. So that's a typical little Galician church with the typical Celtic portico. And on those churches, you can get a stamp pretty much everywhere, and they're all very unique. So it's nice to stop and say a prayer if you want, or get your stamp and visit around, see the atmosphere. It's always a good bit of people around as well. So that day, we had a short day. So typical your day, as I said earlier, you have 22 kilometer a day. So if you start 9 a.m., you finish, let's say, at around 4 o'clock. Yeah. So that accounts for a lunch and a break in the morning and a break on the afternoon. So You start, let's say, at 9, you finish at 4. There's no reason to start much earlier if you have your accommodation booked anyway, or if you know there will be availability. And starting later, it's a little bit, you can put you in trouble as well. Remember that if you don't have enough time to just regenerate or to relax after your walk, you'll be tired the next day. So if you finish around 4 or 5 o'clock on the long day, that still gives you 3 hours before supper. And on those 3 hours, you can just lie down or read a book or have a shower and go down for dinner around 8 o'clock. That day was particularly short. The last 100 kilometers is 6 nights, 5 walking days. But you have the option as well to do it in 6 walking days, which gives you a long day split in 2. So instead of 28 kilometers, you can do 14K and 14K. 14 kilometers, you finish around, let's say, between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock on the afternoon. So we arrived around 1 o'clock. So we went to a very popular restaurant in the place called Melide. It's called Garnacha. It's on the left-hand side when you come into town, and they have those massive wooden table, and you can just take a spot, sit down, and the camarero, the waiter, is coming to serve you. So you can see on the table, we've got some wine, of course, some little fried pepper called pimento de padrón, some bread, and this is typical of Melide in Galicia. It's the octopus. It serves like that with olive oil, paprika, and beer, I suppose. We got also empanadas. If you've been to Spain, you've seen them pretty much everywhere, or South America as well. They are, so it's just a pie somehow with tuna or onions inside or tomatoes. It's really delicious. And then there's always options, of salads and vegetarian options as well. And they are crazy for their cured meat and cheese as well. For the cyclist, there is options, always alternative options when it's too narrow, when the trail is just too narrow, or, there's always option for cyclists to take a diversion and take an easier road. Bear in mind that doing the Camino cycling is not easy. It's not because that you have a bike that you're going to go faster. As I said before, you have to go up and down pretty much, not a lot, but a bit every day. And if it's a little bit steep, you will have to push your bike, and pushing a bike is generally more difficult than walking. And if it goes down a bit steeply, you will have also to maybe walk beside your bike. So even though there's an alternative road for the bikes, you might, if you're not an expert, if you don't have experience riding bike, it may make your life a little bit more difficult. We have also options where every day you do about 10 kilometers walk. We call it the easy options. And so for 10-kilometer walk, if you really you're not sure you can do 20K, you can do 10 kilometer a day. So it's good. You can take your time, read a book, see the scenery, etc. But you got to think about it as well, because I do 10 kilometers in about 2 hours, or maybe 2 hours and a half, right, for 10K. And what do you do after? Let's say you start at 10, you finish at 12. Would you like every day to just walk 2 hours? And also you sort of lose the pace with the other people that are consistently passing you. So yes, it's a good option if you want to take your time, visit the town, etc. But think about it for a week as well. So that day, that was the next day. We felt a little bit tired, just about 2 kilometers before Arzua, the next town we were staying at, and we just sit at a cafe, and it was, about, 1 o'clock, and we just decided to stop and have a coffee and continue our routes after. As you get closer to Santiago, you got a good shade, and you start to smell the eucalyptus. So they are pretty much everywhere. The forest of eucalyptus, they have been planted in the 60s. They give you a good shade, and they really, really smell delicious. There's other environmental issues as well around the eucalyptus. but it is really a different change on the scenery and on the feel, and they really give good freshness. Along the Camino, as I said, you can stay in hostel. You can stay in hotel, as you saw a couple of pictures. You have a third option. They are called Casa Rural. They are countryside accommodation. We have an option where you can upgrade on what we call country cottages. Those places are farms that have been renovated. They are kind of small. They don't have more than 8, 10 rooms maximum. They are in the middle of the countryside. There's great gardens around. Some are like old mills that have been done up, and they are all very special. The people are really taking pride on them. They are not much more expensive than the normal hotel option, and they really give you a good insight on the countryside. However, bear in mind, those country cottages are not in the center of the town. So if you're on your own and you walk the Camino, you may find it a little bit remote really to stay on those country cottages. However, if you go with a group of people or if you go on a romantic holiday, and they are definitely the option to book. When you see that, you're very happy. It's called the Monte de Gozo, the Mount of Joy. It's the first time that you will see the city of Santiago de Compostela. You've been walking 5 or 6 days. You've walked 115 kilometers, and you know that in 1 hour, in 5 kilometers, you will be finished. You will reach the city of Santiago de Compostela. So it's generally a moment that is very full of happiness. And well, it's a mix. It's a good day. I think it's a good day for everybody. It just is very, very powerful. You got a little bit of traffic as you came in the city, but then straight away you come into the city of Santiago de Compostela. It's a really vibrant city full of local students, old people, young people and tourists from everywhere. When I walked the Camino, I met this German doctor, and he's been on the Camino for about 5 months, and he reached Santiago after 5 months, and he was coming back to Germany walking as well. So he was going to do another 5 months coming back to Germany. You have stories from pretty much everywhere. You have buskers in the street playing music. It's very, very powerful, and plenty of little cafe and restaurants as well to enjoy. And it is the Cathedral of Santiago that you are a religious person, or that you're not, that you're a spiritual person or anything, that you are, Christian, Catholic, Protestant, Muslim. This is where everybody goes. There's such an atmosphere, such a powerful relationship there. It's unbelievable. The cathedral is packed from the morning to the evening. There is something really happening there. It is really exceptional. It's really a place of meditation, contemplation, and you've achieved your goal. You have achieved your Camino de Santiago. Something interesting inside to see is that each mass, during the high season, you can see the priest swinging the botafumero. It's a big incensory that weighs more than 100 kilograms, and it swings from left to right inside the cathedral. So then after you can take a picture with the Holy Father. So this is finished for the presentation of the last 100 kilometers of the Camino, and I will pick up on some of the questions there. So oops. So don't forget, okay, excellent. So if you have a little bit more time, and if you want to, if you have a little bit more time and if you want to continue your trip, you can continue as well to Finisterre. You can go to the coast walking. It's going to take you another 3 days or 4 days walking to the cliff. It's really exceptional. You got the lighthouse where you can stay. You got the cliff. It's an ancient pilgrimage where people thought it was the end of the world. And there is a tradition when you arrive in Finisterre where you take some of your belonging and you burn it just to symbolize a renewal, a new life. And it's a very special place to go. If you've seen the movie The Way with Martin Sheen, he's going a little bit further than Finisterre. He's going to Muxia, and that's where he put the ashes of his son. Sorry about that. And it's a special place. Yeah. So are we okay? Is there any other question, Maria? Okay, Maria's typing. Okay, yes, the Pilgrim Mass is every day. You got a Mass at 12 and you've got a Mass at 6 p.m. The Botafumeiro you're sure to have it every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, at midday and sometime evenings. During the week, it's less sure. You can call the cathedral, but generally from May to September, to end of September, even October, every Saturday, every Sunday, you will have the famous Botafumeiro. Just to remind you, the Botafumeiro is the big ancestry that swings. If you go to our website, we have an article about the Botafumeiro. And that question was from Christy. An option to cycle some of the way and walk some of it. Yes, so cycle some of the way and walk some of it. Well, if you're a bit short on time, I think it's a good option. I'll suggest if you can walk the first week, so across the Pyrenees, for example, and then the center of Spain. Some of it is more transitional. It's not that pretty. So you could cycle a good, something that would take you 2 weeks. You can cycle it in just few days or in just a week. So the center, and then the end starts to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more difficult as well. So maybe you can walk the end. So you could do the Camino overall by walking and cycling in about 2.5 weeks, probably 2.5 weeks. Yeah. Now, regarding your bike, you have to be aware that you have to be able to, of course, change a tire. You have to be kind of experienced with your bike. And also, we are able to deliver bikes everywhere on the Camino. So if you give us, when you make your booking and you want a bike, we can rent the bike and deliver it pretty much everywhere. It's not an issue, but you won't find it everywhere, the option to have your bike delivered. It's not because you arrive in Saint-Jean that you will be able to have someone to give you the bike and you will be able to collect it as well. So what else? That's all. Okay, excellent. Yes, we have also an interactive weather map as well. If you Google on Camino Ways, you will see we have a search box on the top of CaminoWays.com. You can search for the blog and you can check your specific rainfall and temperature, or you go directly on the last 100 kilometers of the French way. I'll ask the guys to post the link and on the chat on the right there. And you can see on that chat that there is, you can see on that page that there is the weather and the temperature for that way. I think it's pretty much it. And so I think I'll thank everybody for coming here. Thank you very much for coming to the presentation, for our first presentation. Okay. Sorry, there is a last question. So is there a bus service between stop in the last 100K? Yes, exactly. So look, don't be too afraid. You're not in the middle of the Sahara Desert or, so you have bus linking between town to town. So you have to change to take your Camino, to take your bus along the way. A bus trip, will cost you €1 or €2. A taxi will cost you about €1 per kilometer as well. So you have those two options as well. Okay. So look, thank you very much. Don't forget the voucher code. If you want to book your trip with us, you have 10% off. We'll post it as well on the chat right now. If you have any other question, feel free to email Claire and Jeremy and their team at info@CaminoWays.com. We are also very active on Facebook and Twitter, so connect with us at CaminoWays or facebook.com/CaminoWays. And yes, thank you very much for joining us today.